Good morning. It is so exciting to see so many friends and colleagues here in the audience. Thank you for being with us this morning. We started Telecom Exchange earlier this year. I don't know if you guys noticed. You're like, wow, we have to get there and registered earlier. And that is so we could fit in 4 phenomenal CEO roundtables, all being recorded and will be replayed on JSA TV. Just throwing that out there. So I'm glad you could join us this morning, and thank you, viewers, for tuning in at home. And first roundtable is sort of our kickoff keynote roundtable here. We're talking about the ever-popular topic, SDN, software-defined networks. What is it? What are we doing? What's the 411? Where are we heading? Eric Hanselman, he is the chief analyst at 451 Research. In case you're not sure what 451 Research is, I'm sure we all know in this room, but the company coordinates industry analysis across broad portfolio of disciplines, the confluence of the forces of mobile device growth and cloud computing, creating tectonic shifts in the industry. So we have the move to converged infrastructure and SDN. Eric helps 451 Research's clients navigate these turbulent waters and determine their impacts and how they can best be capitalized. So without further ado, let me introduce our esteemed Eric.
Thanks, Jamie. And I, in turn, would like to introduce our esteemed panel. So immediately on my left, well, if I can get all of my stuff right side up, it works all the better. Hunter Newby is CEO of Allied Fiber, a communications network business and real estate investor, a developer with highly successful track record of creating value. He is a published author, a public speaker, the recipient of numerous awards, including being named to the Global Telecoms Business Top 40 Under 40 in 2010. Fedor Smith is, Thank you. No. Fedor Smith is president of ATLANTIC-ACM, a market research and consulting firm based in Boston. Mr. Smith specializes in operations analysis, customer feedback research, and market sizing. He has a degree in history and economics from Hamilton College, has done graduate work in finance, marketing, and operations management at Harvard. He is also a triathlete and enjoys squash and surfing. Although I'm not sure whether or not he does them both at the same time. That would be a serious trick. Tim Kiser, the owner and founder of Colo ATL, a premier colocation facility in downtown Atlanta, Georgia, parent company to the Southeast Network Access Point, SNAP, you may know, a next-generation internet exchange supporting IPv4, IPv6, as well as OpenFlow, SDN. Tim is also quite skilled in the martial arts, so make sure to agree with him, all you other panelists. So welcome, Tim. Simon Dredge is Director of Technical Marketing at Metaswitch Networks. Simon's currently responsible for positioning a broad portfolio of virtualized network functions, plus an emerging multi-layer SDN controller platform. However, as the only non-CXO level here, he continues to punch above his weight, and he was threatening to head out to pick up coffee and donuts before we all wrap up. So, Simon. So I want to start off with just sort of a general setting. We've got a whole bunch of questions. We also are going to be holding time at the end for your questions. SDN is a topic about which there is a tremendous amount of interest, hype, and a whole set of different definitions as to just what it means and what its relevance is. As I walked into the library this morning, there were 2 books that jumped out at me. One was Irresistible Empire. The other was Stalingrad. And I've got the feeling that those are the 2 extremes with which SDN winds up being viewed. The fact that it's inevitable, and yet on the other hand, it can be a particularly hard slog to get to. What are we going to have to do to be able to make our environments more flexible, to integrate, to manage all these capabilities that the potential exists to be able to revolutionize the way in which we integrate all of this? Well, with all those wild words, it can seem kind of daunting to head into what is a shift in the way in which we approach the flexibility with which we deliver services. But I want to borrow from Jamie's kickoff this morning, and I think it really behooves us to be courageous, not only in things in life, but when we start thinking about things like SDN as well. So with that, I've got a set of questions that I'm going to open up to our panelists here. And I want to start off with, for each of you, what do you think the key differences are between SDN and one of the other technologies that's tied into it, Network Functions Virtualization? And you can also, if you want to split hairs about whether or not it's network functions like Etsy or network function as Enterprise is doing. What are your thoughts about sort of where that fits and where that split is? There's a lot of confusion in terms of each of those terms and how they're used. So, Hunter, why don't we start off with you in the end?
Sure. Thank you, Eric and Jamie and JSA and everybody for being here. It's great to be back in New York. It's great to wake up in a bed and actually know where I am. So, Sdn and Nfv. So Sdn, in brief, is really, it's decoupling the function in the network from software and hardware. So it's separating intelligence at the control plane away from the hardware, chassis, cards, ports, and essentially commoditizing the physical and having a control plane, server, open source, be able to run all the gear so that it's not proprietary and siloed and, specific to vendors, which then opens up the opportunity to move towards NFV, which is really, think of it as application development. So creating apps that used to be hard-coded things in the network. And the apps now can interoperate with each other because of the fact that the control plane is separate from the physical layer. So they play nice together, but they're two totally different things. And SDN is decoupling. And that actually drives more necessity to have more physical layer infrastructure that's independent because there'll be so many more networks that need it in order to function and operate, which kind of is oxymoronic. There'll be lots of other networks, but then they need to all come back together as one again. And that's where the SDN layer and then the NFV come in. Does that make sense? I don't know if that helps or not. Did that add more confusion? I hope not.
Yeah, I can add to that. I understand exactly what Hunter was saying. I kind of see the NFV as like a firewall, services or apps that can do functions in the layers. And then what SDN is, we're trying to get the customer to be able to control those functions, and that's where they're trying to bridge that gap. So I see NFV has the functions, the apps are already there, and SDN is trying to manipulate them where the network people or the carriers or the vendors don't do it, but we as the individual can do it.
Sure.
I can take this from a telecom perspective. If you think about network functions virtualization functions, let's see. If you think about hardware today, telecoms equipment, and it could be anything from routers, firewalls, deep packet inspection devices, session border controllers, they've all been built using proprietary hardware. So take a session border controller comprises of many different bits of silicon. There's network processors in there. There's DSPs in there. There's things called TCAMs, ternary content address managers. All lots of different bits of silicon on a proprietary bit of hardware. What Network Functions Virtualization aims to do is put the function, i.e. the session border controller in this case, onto an open platform, a x86 standard off-the-shelf server platform. So it really forces the vendors, much like Metaswitch, and much like Metaswitch has done, to get away from proprietary hardware towards delivering just a pure bit of software that can run on any server platform, and then take it one step further and actually run that software in a virtual machine, obviously in a cloud data center. SDN, of course, is very well explained already. Separation of the controller and forwarding plane. Think of that as, for example, in a session border controller, you have a data forwarding plane. The data goes through, and the signaling goes through that same platform. Again, session border controller example. In SDN, we might rip out the forwarding plane and the control plane, and SDN does something very similar. It says, let's take the network intelligence and let's put it in a central location, separate from the forwarding planes themselves. And then let's open it up. Let's open up APIs so we can actually program the network. Where they intersect, I think you asked that question, Eric. They intersect because when you're delivering network functions virtualization, you need to be able to control the applications in the data center, and SDN will actually help do that. It actually helps route the traffic through the appropriate virtual machines in the data center.
So if I can summarize, really, we've got control capabilities, we've got the traffic management pieces that all get wrapped up in SDN. The NFV pieces wind up being the functionality. It's all the work, the service work we wind up doing that all gets routed and managed by it. Fedor, do you have a...
Yeah, I was going to say we look at it much more from a customer perspective, and from that position, the NFV is really the key element, customer prem, et cetera, in the network, and that's enabled by the SDN side, and it puts a customer in position or a carrier on behalf of that customer to tailor both network and hardware or virtual hardware to the specific needs functions that customer is utilizing, and thus minimize waste and maximize efficiency across the board.